Thank you. Thank you to the presence of divinity in everyone watching this webinar. It is such an amazing, humbling, incredible experience for me to sit at the feet of the divine in each of you. Thank you. Thank you to the Mother of the Universe for being the very life flow of this healing session. Thank you to all the diversified expressions of that underlying, unified wholeness of creation. Thank you to everyone's ancestors, expanding that divine being that you are out to all your ancestors and to all of them. Thank you. And may today's webinar be blessed with the ability, be blessed, the Sankalp, be blessed by the collective intention of everyone participating to expand our healing capacity, to befriend our bodies as a means or a foundation for that process. May we all rise to be master healers. May all of you be master healers, healing yourselves, healing the world, healing and supporting and nourishing and uplifting our dear, beautiful world and our world family, the family of humanity, so that we may all be deserving of a reality which is supportive to everyone, which is aligned with cosmic evolution, and which allows each person and each expression of life to realize its full potential. Thank you, everyone, for being with me. All right, so one idea that came up was that it would be good to do a little recap, especially for those of you who are new, because we've got some new people every time we get a few new people. So that's really cool. And what I may eventually do is make a video that I ask people to watch, like a 2 or 3 minute video that you can watch before you do a webinar, and that'll give you sort of this overview, basic understanding. But since we didn't do that yet, we may start with that with the next webinar or the one after. I'll just do that right now. So for those of you who've been with me a long time, I hope that it's fun again. Okay, so energy healing is directing attention intelligently to activate or enliven one's maximum healing capacity or manifesting capacity or whatever is most important for the evolutionary process. And my job is to be the mouthpiece or the speaker of that aspect of you, because we're all, in a sense, the whole self-environment relationship is a kind of a reflective mirroring relationship. So we always have a choice of what we reflect back to others. So my job here is to reflect this very capable, very powerful, very amazing level of your own self, which has the ability to heal you back to you so you can see it clearly and you can compare and contrast my perception of that with your perception of that, thus giving everyone a broader perspective. And the cool thing about these live webinars, which makes them different from private consultations or distance energy work sessions, in some ways the same as distance energy work sessions, is that when we're here as a group, we have a sort of bigger collective, we have a bigger organization of perspectives on this process, and that really, really enriches the entire process. It's like having more than 2 eyes open, having multiple eyes open. So thank you all for being an eye of the divine. Each of you, us, is an eye of the divine. And that brings me to another point about sort of a foundation for understanding how energy healing works, and that is that we have silent, infinite field of pure consciousness is the foundation of everything in creation. We have our physical body and what we think of as the energy of our self as the manifest level of creation, at least of the self. And this manifest level, the physical body and the personality consciousness, etc., conscious mind, self, are the antenna of this great, infinite, eternal, vast universe. But just because the body and the consciousness are the antenna of the universe, it doesn't mean that you are not also that. It just means that this is the sense organ. So one of the fundamental principles that we're working with here is that there's nothing really outside of oneself. That even this great universe is an expression, an expansion of self, an expression of self, a manifestation of self. It's all one big thing. All right. So there was one more thing I was going to say, and everybody knows that we divide up the manifest level of the self from very, very subtle to very dense and concrete. So we already know that. Oh, another thing I was going to say is you can ask questions. They will be handled anonymously, and there should be a button up in your upper left corner that allows you to do that and also to adjust your audio. That didn't have to do with energy work, but it has to do with a live webinar. So very good. All right. So that's the basic premise that we're working with. Now, today's webinar is about befriending the body. And the reason we bring this up is we know that the concept of friendship generally associates with our relationship with our environment, with the people we know, being friends, family and friends. And what we're going to do is we're going to relate some of the principles associated with this element of being friendly, making friends, and getting along with other people, working coherently as a collective, to working coherently within our own internal structure. And we're doing that because, as we all know, when we work in a group, whether we're in school or at work with other people or in a family unit, whatever kind of collectives we find ourselves in, friends collectives or whatever, we know that when everybody's on board and moving in the same direction and having similar intentions, that a lot can be accomplished. In fact, the more on board everybody is, like say a sports team that's been practicing together for a really long time, or a musical ensemble who've been, playing the same music over and over, you get to really know each other and really work coherently, then amazing, miraculous things can be accomplished. So we want to take that level of working together and apply that to the physiology. That's what we're doing tonight. So first, let's see, I made a few notes because it was all coming up earlier. Right. Okay. Okay, so one of the first principles about friendship and getting along with other people is, and this is from my mom, hey mom, that people love you, they like to be with you, they enjoy your company when they enjoy themselves. So what that means is people tend to be attracted to you, not because you're brilliant and you're amazing or you're nice or whatever, but because they are their best when they're with you. The principle is that we're all part of a great big cosmic process of evolution. So we're moving in the direction of our highest potential. And when we have friends whose nature is to support that evolutionary flow, then we are becoming our best self when we're with them. And then it's nice to be with them. And that has a lot more to do with how we're loved with them than it does to do with whether they're like super awesome and amazing and cool. So This is the first principle, is that principle of cultivating a relationship where we are so positioned that the evolutionary process is enhanced through that relationship. Now, if we look at these three aspects, this infinite divine aspect of self, physical body aspect, and the whole in-between aspect, the personality consciousness, divine is already fully developed. The divine level of self is already infinite, it's already eternal, it's already all-knowing, all-being, all incredible. Body ultimately knows this. Ultimately, the body knows at a very kind of deep, visceral level that it is made of stardust. It is made of consciousness. It is made of the stuff of which the rest of the universe is made. So at a very deep level, body already has this ability to make us feel that we are our best, essentially. The body is the ultimate servant, right? The body will so humble, so devoted to you that no matter what you ask the body to do, as a general rule, unless it's too ill to do that, it will do even things that are bad for it. You know, if you ask the body to light a cigarette and suck on it, the body will just do that. Even if though the hand knows it's not good for it, the mouth and lungs know it's not good, it'll do it anyway because you asked it. And the body is just so dedicated to fulfilling the desires of the being. If you ask it to eat some food that's really gonna go down bad, the body will just do it. The body will even enjoy it. Oh, this tastes good. Give me more of that. So the body is already flowing in waves of devotion, always, always. And if the very, very biggest level of the self wants the body to break down a little bit in order to limit the conscious mind and limit the capacity to function, in order to cultivate some specific skills or some specific abilities, or maybe learn some specific lessons, like being able to let other people take care of you sometimes. Sometimes people who give, and have given for a long, long time. Those of you in the who are listening, and you know I'm talking about you, have given so much for so long that the body can break down and get sick because it's time to receive with grace. It's time to let other people take care of you and be okay with that. And that once that lesson has been imbibed, once one has let go of that attachment to, no, I have to take care of other people and I have to give to them, and just let go and just let people take care of you, then this creates a completion of a cycle. And then you can relax and get healthy again and be more balanced. So you're taking care of others and they're taking care of you, and everything is balanced. The ability to produce that wave of love in the heart of another person is as powerful as the ability to produce and create a wave of love in yourself. And for this, we are also clearing from spirit level of the physiology. Spirit level here. Spirit level of the body. For some people, this idea of I always have to give more than I receive is deep in the tissues as well, particularly in female ancestral lines, mothers. And that goes hand in hand. What's clearing from there are impressions, feelings, guilt, feelings of responsibility. But along with that, oh wow, we forgot to unplug our telephone. What do you know? This will just take a few minutes. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you, my team, for picking up the phone. Anyway, along with that are self-identified structures. Sometimes I call them 6 aspects, but basically they have to do with egoic structures of feeling like if I'm not pulling my weight, I'm not worthy of love, I'm not worthy of living, my life isn't justified, my privilege of living here in this home with all these other people isn't justified if I'm not working as hard as I possibly can, or at least pulling more weight than everybody else or whatever. And there are lots of people that have felt that way over time. So this is also, as this clears, this is like a kind of an illusion which supports, working so hard and so forth. But this brings me to another point that I wanted to bring up. And that is that, I have my notes over here, but I'm thinking about the best way to organize this piece of information for everybody, because it's multiple pieces and it's nice if it comes out really clean. So if we accept that infinity is an inherent part of one's being, that infinity is an inherent part of one's being, that means that I am not just my body and my personality, but I am really, really an eternal aspect of creation. I am really the eternal aspect. Then there are 4 different ways of looking at this. There are 4 different ways of accepting infinity into the definition of self. One way is to say, well, okay, I have my physical body and I have my conscious mind personality, and I have my world, my environment that I'm living with here. But in every particle of my creation, infinity exists. If I follow every little atom back to its finest point, somewhere in there, deep down at the quantum level, it's just being. It's just consciousness that makes this pen and this hair and everything else. So we can see, yes, I live in the physical material world, but being is present at every point. That's one way of looking. Another way of looking at self is that, well, I'm soul having a human experience, but the soul, which is having the human experience, is I identify with my eternal nature. I identify more with my soul than I do with my body. So that's another little, slightly different perspective, is that I identify with this great, eternal, vast piece of the universe, which is me. And it has tremendous capacity. When the awareness sinks down, what this is really the difference here is, am I identifying with my 4 denser levels of the physiology, or am I identifying with these subtle levels of the self? A spirit body, causal body, celestial body, these astral body. And then I'm recognizing, that's who I really am. That's really my essential nature. Infinity is still in these parts, right? But then one realizes, I have this incredible, amazing capacity to harness this part of myself, which can transform this relative level of creation. So that's a second way. That still includes infinity, because down here at this level, infinity is already deeply incorporated into the being. This causal body, celestial body, is just, from one end of creation to another. It's like a field, like a great big ocean. There's another way, which is all of this relative myself and all of this subtle part of myself are just a shadow floating upon my real essential nature, which is that silent, infinite field of pure being. And that's what I really am. And all the rest of this is like a shadow. It's an illusion. It doesn't even hardly exist but for my being, infinite being is what I really am. And then all this on top of it's like a play. It's just playing in the field of life. And I'm just moving from one thing to another, and it's all infinity at its source. And then there's a fourth, that's a third. Okay. Then there's a fourth way of looking at it, which is even all this play on the surface is just that. Even the play, every aspect of the play, every particle of the play is nothing but that infinite being. It's the same picture. All four of those are the same picture, but they're just approached from different perspectives. Now, sometimes, first I should say, it's good if one can, we're not getting rid of ego. We're not saying, oh, ego's bad, oh, ego's going to mess you up, or your ego is what really gets you in trouble. No, what we're saying is ego, like everything else of self, is a tool, and we master that tool. So the ability to see oneself in any of these four different expressions of self, infinite self, is like having four notes that you can play on a musical instrument. Oh, and you can play a song. Even if you have one note, you can play a song. Da, 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 da. That was a song. That was a little fanfare. So even one is great, right? Even one is great. They're all great. They're all great. But for that aspect of self, which is how do we self-identify? And how do we self-identify is basic to this whole principle of befriending the self. So how do we self-identify? We want to have a lot of autonomy. We want to have flexibility. We want to be able to self-identify in terms of infinity in multiple ways, because every situation calls for something different. Even though all of us have decided that infinity is definitely an integral part of what we are not always dealing with people who think and feel that way, or who have an experience that supports it. And so it's necessary to be able to communicate with everyone in a way which allows their full potential to rise to the surface, even if they have no concept that infinity even exists. That's why you have to be able to move from one point to another. So I'm just asking Divine Being, and I've never asked this before. Wait, I have to slightly, oh, there's symmetry. So asking Divine Being for symmetry, asking Divine Being, best way to bring flexibility into the aspect of the system which is responsible for self-identification. And I'm feeling it. And what I'm seeing happening is that the instrument, which is the body and the mind, is aligning with infinite flexibility. There are infinite ways of self-identifying with infinity. Infinity times infinity. And for everyone, oh, you guys are so beautiful. So I was going to say, for everyone, there are realms, there are whole universes of perception and experience. Thank you, guys. Thank you all so much. You are so amazing. So I'm getting a big picture right here, and I want to share it with you. And the reason I close my eyes and be silent for a minute is I have to find the right words so it makes really good sense, because it's a picture that's so far outside of words. These four aspects of knowing oneself in terms of infinity can also be applied to every antenna in creation. And some of the antennas are corporeal, and most of them aren't. A lot of them aren't. So what that means is feeling is intimate and attuned to beings, to levels and expressions of being that don't even have physical bodies, like the beautiful manifestations of Mother Divine. I was talking to one exquisitely intelligent gentleman the other day, who'll be on tomorrow's webinar, so hopefully he'll get to see this, that even the vowels and consonants are bodies in their own way, in their own right. If I say ah, ah, ah is the body of living form. In Sanskrit, the written language is called Devanagari, and Deva means the gods, and Nagari means the home where the gods live. And that means that Ah is like part of that level of creation. Everything has life. At the superficial level of creation, up here where our bodies are, I'm sitting over here in Iowa, and you're over there in California, and somebody else is on the East Coast, and so on and so on. But at the finest level of creation, being life force gets thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker, and you get down to the source of creation, and there's just only life force. Only life force. Everything, anything you can possibly identify is full of life force. Is full of life force. Is full. Is only life. Ah. Is a body of being which is very abstract compared to these bodies. I hope that makes sense. You should know, everybody needs to know that as we're participating in this live healing webinar, there is a lot of transformation that's taking place for everybody. I just want you to know this, and I'm seeing as we're going along certain kinds of healings taking place in the system on many levels at the same time, and I'm not able to really say all of it. But just to throw out a few that are going on here, there are changes taking place in the brain to accommodate the ability to identify with infinity, to identify as self to infinity. There are changes taking place for our precious family of humanity, both from the level of ancestral work, so that means DNA, changes at the level, I'm seeing big downloads coming into the DNA, great softness coming into the DNA, which is reminding me of something else I wanted to touch on tonight, so I'm going to go into that in just a second. And also through what we think of as the distant past of physiologies, the physiologies that we have inhabited as we have gone through, as she, the mother of creation, Ma, has gone through the human experience for centuries upon centuries. These physiologies are also awakening to the ability to integrate experience of infinity in every point. Even though I was going to bring this point up later, it's coming up now, so I'm going to bring it to you now. And that is that there is a feeling that the body is able to have, which I would describe as ultra comfortable. Ultra comfort. It is a feeling that most people recall from early childhood, like infancy. And as I'm bringing up this concept of infancy, the divine level of our being, our collective being, is moving back through time, and we're actually addressing our physiologies as infants. And infants have this sort of approximate cycle that they go through, where they sleep, and it's about 20 minutes. When they're first born, they'll sleep about 20 minutes. Then they'll wake up for about 20 minutes. Then they'll want to nurse. They'll want to eat for a few minutes, and then they'll go back to sleep again. And that can be, especially the waking eating part, can sort of go back and forth. Sometimes they wake up hungry, they have to eat first, and they're awake for a little while. Sometimes they're awake for a little while, then they get hungry. But overall, there's this kind of hour cycle that takes place. And in this cycle, the physical body goes through this process of having variety of experience. The stomach is empty, then the stomach is full. Then we're tired, so we sleep, and then we've gotten enough rest, so then we wake up and we don't want to sleep anymore. And anytime we experience this contrast between the one experience that the body's had enough of, and then we get to move over to another experience, there's a joy or a bliss associated with that. For those of you who are mothers or fathers out there in the audience, there's a very special kind of sleep that babies have. It's unique. It's like just this deep, deep peace of sleep. Everyone's heard the saying, sleep like a baby. When babies sleep, it's like they just go into some kind of a heavenly bliss of sleep. And so this is the feeling. It's that feeling of, I went out and I biked really hard out on the trail, and then I came home and I sat down, and it's like so nice. And I think as grown-ups, sometimes we recreate this feeling with certain triggers. We create, as adults, certain triggers that give rise to that feeling. I know a lot of people have a really special feeling about the coffee that they drink in the morning. Yeah? And, they're just different things like that. In fact, this is amazing. It's just coming to me now because the coffee kind of reminded me. A lot of people identify as triggers things which are actually not super good for the body, like those cigarettes we talked about earlier, or sometimes I know there's certain times people work in very, very difficult, they labor, very difficult physical jobs, and they really look forward to coming home at the end of the day and sitting down in front of a television and drinking a beer, and that's just like, that just makes them so happy. And so we've learned to identify different triggers like that. And I wouldn't say they're all bad triggers. I mean, we all know that we have choices, and we could identify triggers. Like, one of the things I love to do is to go outside in the sunshine and fresh air, especially this time of year when the temperature is just beautiful, and just walk a little bit outside. It's just lovely, and the body just, it awakens when that happens. It's such a nice thing to do. So we can choose, or meditation or something, we can self-select triggers which are life-supporting. So that's one thing right here. And this is on a purely intellectual level. You can look at your life and see, well, what are my triggers for that feeling of, I am so self-nourished by this experience? Because that feeling is one of the big keys to integrating the divine level of self with the physical level of self, with the personality consciousness level of self. We want to bring this system into a state of integration, and those activities that give you that feeling of, ooh, my special thing that I like to do. Those activities are tools which allow that experience to stabilize to a certain degree. But what we do in energy work is we want to get past the triggers. I'm bringing up this idea of triggers because I know we all have something like that, right? Everybody's got that somewhere. And that will help kick off a memory and start to activate certain kind of neurochemicals, just thinking about the thing you like to do, so that you know what we're aiming at, because we want to see where are we going with this energy work and this idea of befriending the body and harnessing this deeper capacity to self-heal. We can harness that feeling without the trigger, because essentially the body knows what that feels like to have such a sweet love, such self-nourishing, the conscious mind personality in the same aligned, in the same dedicated devotion, that the body is always aligned. The body is always your eternal servant. And the field of divine being is also always ever that dedicated servant to its own internal processes, to its own process of creating our universe with humans in it. So when the personality aligns with that, and I say, oh, when I sit to meditate is my special time, that's when I'm really, really taking care of myself, then that feeling triggers this alignment between physical body, in divine self, and consciousness. But that alignment, that sense of I am fully aligned with the dedicated to the well-being of all good, of myself, the universe, my body, that does not have to be isolated to specific activities, habits, foods, behaviors, etc. Ever. It can be ever present. It has an energy signature. There's a certain feeling that you get when you do something nice for you. You give yourself an oil massage. There's a special feeling. That feeling has an energy signature. We're using the oil massage, or we're using the walk on the ground with the bare feet, or whatever, as the trigger to get it going. But knowing that that's a trigger is enough to recognize that on the level of consciousness, there's a place where I am there. Download for everyone. And we're in a big collective right now, so it's not just all of us. It's all of the extension. It's all the extended family. It's all the family of humanity. That this state of consciousness, this capacity of consciousness to resonate in this particular frequency will produce that sense of deep, abiding well-being in the physiology. That sense of deep, abiding well-being in the physiology speaks to the physiology. It communicates optimal health to the physiology. It is an energy medicine. It is a tool to put the body into its highest potential mode, to support the body's ability to feel amazing, full of energy, digesting well. My dear cousin brought up a scientific study to me the other day that showed that when people participate in potlucks and parties, they tend, as a general rule, to eat many times more calories than they do during their day-to-day eating habits. And they also tend to metabolize food fantastically efficiently. So you can actually eat a bunch of food at a potluck, like a bunch, like, oh, I'll try all 6 desserts. You can do that, and you will not put on any weight, because the joy of being there with your friends and everybody's having such a great time upgrades and uplifts the body's capacity. That quality of bliss is there. Oh, I'm going to go, this is something fun I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the potluck with my friends, right? So in that place, it's a whole different deal. That metabolic process becomes, it restructures itself so that the body burns the calories completely efficiently. We're doing this already, but in this healing webinar, what we're doing is we're looking at what we're doing, we're recognizing it, and then we're isolating it into its finest expression so that we can create that at will. We could call it the potluck medicine. We could call it potluck energy medicine. That why not have the potluck experience at every meal? Why not be able to just eat whatever you want and know that you're going to just metabolize it beautifully? It's just going to turn into laughter and happiness and energy. So again, this is a state. The body will go into it sort of spontaneously based on the fact that the conscious mind is making a decision that's in favor of expansion of friends, expansion of happiness, expansion of all that's good. It's aligning. Conscious mind is aligning with your highest potential. Okay, I'm going to look at my, oh yeah. Okay, my outline. I wanted to bring up some really cool stuff tonight. I've got treats to share with everybody. So I want to share a book with you. This book is by a really sweet couple. Their names are Michael and Linda Quinn, and I just know they're not going to mind if I share this with you. So this is their book. Oh, in my mirror, this is backwards, but it's a really nice book. And what's cool about this book, I was reading this book to a friend the other day, and wouldn't you know, as I was reading it, it was speaking to me too. So it's good for not just for people. The book is called The Journey Home, Inspiring Passages from Near-Death Experiences to Comfort the Dying. And it's pretty inspiring even if you're not dying, just saying. So I recommend everyone to get that book because it's a really nice book. And it's really beautifully written. I should just say it's also like in these great little passages. Can you see? It's in little passages, so you can just read. You can pick it up and just read a little paragraph or something. But the reason I'm bringing it up in this healing webinar is because I'm synthesizing what I read to my friend. And the principle here is that we were reading the section on having your life flash before your eyes. You know, people have said, oh, you near-death experience, and then, you know, my life unfolded before me like a panorama. And I discovered consistently in this book, one of the discoveries that people made was that they weren't judged by someone other than themselves. That they were able to look back at their life experiences, and they were able to see the experience not just from their perspective, but from the perspective of everybody else that they were interacting with at the time. And by getting a big holistic perspective on that, they were able to see the areas where they could have done a little better and the areas where they did really great. And along with that, in another section, were points regarding feeling completely loved, completely adored, completely accepted, just bathing in the light of divine love. The reason I bring this up is because we don't have to die in order to have this experience. Having this experience now is awesome. So the principle is that when we have an integration of infinity into this antenna of the universe, when we have the whole universe on the level of the conscious mind is cherished as one's own. We cherish the whole universe as my own self, because really that's the truth. The truth is the whole universe is yourself. You are everything. You are the persons that you love, the people you love. You are the people who annoy you. You are the situations you love. You are the situations that annoy you. But all of this range of human experience is being processed through this antenna, your antenna. It's being processed through the antenna of the self. So ultimately, there's no judgment other than one's own self-judgment. And it is all loved. It is all beloved because it is all Ma. It is all the one being of all creation experiencing itself through human perception, through puppy dog perception, through tree perception, through flower perception, through hill perception, through sun perception. It is the whole universe experiencing itself through all the antennas. And that divine being of all creation is such love. It is such vast, eternal, profound, indescribable love. That love is the underlying frequency permeating everything. So any little bit of self-judgment or something that's there, oh, I could have done that better. It's that judgment is there, but it's curbed, it's flavored by this eternal, huge, monumental love. So whatever it is that you do, whatever it was that you did, whatever it is that you are, it is so precious. It is so precious. And even if you are a person who consciously on purpose makes life miserable for other people or whatever, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because that love is so big, it can include everything. And I was going to bring that up for a reason. Why was I going to do that? I think this came up in the area of friendship, and I think part of it was okay, here's what I'm seeing. I'm just looking into the group right now and seeing why did I even bring that up? And the answer that's coming up is, for some reason, being in the human condition, which is blissful because there's variety. It's blissful because when I've been on my feet all day, it feels good to sit down. But if I've been sitting down for hours in front of my computer, it feels good to stand up. If my stomach is empty, it feels really good to eat. But if my stomach's really full, it feels really good to not eat and to let myself get empty, and so forth and so on. So in this state that the antenna is in, where it's deriving joy from this vast variety of experience, there's a tendency to lose track of or to lose that identification with that wholeness and that incredible love. And what I'm saying to everybody is that feeling of incredible comfort in the body that comes from getting off your feet at the end of a long day of waitressing, or feeling the emptiness in the digestive system after you've successfully metabolized a big meal. Those feelings are the manifestation of that love. And I'm seeing it now. What's been happening through the course of human experience and all the way to the past, future, etc., through the ancestors, is a tendency to consider the nature of the human condition as flawed or imperfect, and particularly to look at the body as flawed and imperfect. And of course, the multi-billion-dollar beauty industry doesn't help with that at all. It's all the more favorably supporting the idea of that you are flawed and imperfect. So ignoring that, we need to get rid of those triggers. There are triggers there associated, and they go way back for many generations, that, oh, I'm hungry, this body, it gets hungry, I have to feed it, No, I mean, it's beautiful. It metabolizes food. How brilliant is that, It's just like a slight shift in perspective is all it is. This is what we're looking at, is a slight shift in perspective where being self-deprecating, and I said this in the last webinar too, being self-deprecating is not humility. Humility is letting the mother of the universe, the wholeness, the totality of creation, have credit for everything. That's humility. Just the being of all. And then all the little details are okay. They're acceptable. And I know that all of us have been working on this I know all of you have been working on this to a certain degree in yourselves already for a long time, for at least for some time. And the reason I know this, and I want everybody to pay attention to what's going on in our world around us, is that standards for female beauty, at least in America, in the West right now, are changing. They're getting broader. When I was a teenager, when I was young, there was a pretty thin, narrow spectrum of what was considered beautiful. Basically, you had to look like Britney Spears or else you weren't beautiful. But that's really changed a lot. And we are accepting ourselves more. And the children are accepting. I have a teenage daughter. So I'm watching and I'm seeing what's going through for her psychologically and her friends. And it's so beautiful, and it's so much better than it was, guys, when we were kids. It is just a huge improvement. Girls are enjoying, if they've got a little fat on their hips, man, they are rocking that fat. They're just like, yeah, that's my hip back there, and it's good. So just saying, I would kudos to all of us and to all of the young generation for broadening that spectrum. Because for a long time, the male spectrum was pretty broad, right? Guy could have a big nose or a small nose or a hook nose, or his eyes could be really close together, really far apart, or he could have, a lot of hair, not as much hair, all kinds of variations. And the Western culture tends to be fairly accepting. But for women, it's been a really narrow band. So this healing goes out to all the women for all times. Because the fact is that female bodies are exceptionally beautiful. Female bodies are like, wow, right? And what's beautiful about a female body is not whether it has fat or doesn't have fat. It's how the fat distributes itself. That's amazing. That is like incredible. So this is the message. So what we're doing is we're going in there, all these little, and what I'm seeing, I'll describe to you some of these mechanics, because this is going in. It's going back into the generations, and it's going in and it's working its way into what I would consider to be the 4 denser levels of the physiology, and then also here into the astral and spirit levels of the physiology in there. For some people, it goes down into the field of karma in the causal body because of the things women did to themselves to feel beautiful. But It's a big, as my dear friend Nick calls it, a mishigas. It's just a big mess of self-identification and pain bodies and habits and triggers, and a lot of illusion is in there. There's just layers and layers of imbalances in these areas of the physiology, the denser levels of the physiology, associated with this whole concept that my body is flawed and it's imperfect and it's not good enough, and even if I'm thin, oh, then I'm too thin, or oh, I'm thin enough, but my hair is the wrong color, I think I'll dye it, whatever. And I'm not saying that it's bad to dye your hair. I mean, enjoy your body, play with your body, have fun. I want purple hair, go for it, girl. But the idea is that don't do it because it's bad the way it is, right? That's self-acceptance. Self-acceptance, that's the key right there. And it doesn't, when we're talking self-acceptance, we're bringing self-acceptance up, it's kind of working its way up from the very finer levels of the physiology up into the denser levels of the physiology. This essence of self-acceptance, the very fundamental of self-acceptance, is expanding. And this is because of you. Though you guys are doing this, you're like, yes, self-acceptance. Okay, I got it. I'm on it. And immediately you guys are dropping that into the field of infinity, and it's expanding out into infinity. So I'm reporting it as we're going along. And what's happening is self-acceptance in conjunction with expansion of truth. So it's not just self-acceptance of my definition of myself is this much, like maybe what I am right now, or like what I was when I was a teenager or whatever, but self-acceptance in a very broad way. Self-acceptance of very, very fine details, even self-acceptance when I said something that made someone cry, or self-acceptance when I made myself cry, or self-acceptance like all the way down to every detail. In the past, when I was power hungry, or distant past, we've lived all these lifetimes, we have all this variety of human experience, it's manifesting forth, it's forming itself like a balm of compassion, which is soothing the consciousness of humanity. Now, in previous webinars, we've talked about this field of life that we exist in. It's inside us, it's outside us. It's like a system of cords or threads of consciousness which connect everything to everything. And this balm of compassion is permeating. Our group is so powerful, and we are so coherently stabilized in this resonation of the balm of compassion that it is humming through the field of creation. And it is not just accepting oneself as one is, it's accepting beings that don't have bodies and that terrify people, or everything in creation, even things that human beings would recoil from, are allowed to have this balm of compassion, and they are allowed to evolve in themselves through this recognition of the self as all that is. This recognition, I'm seeing it moving through the whole universe right now. So there's a lot of information coming in, so I'm trying to figure out best way to describe it. But Okay, I had to go into myself to bring up a kind of a structural foundation for describing what just happened. First of all, everyone should know that was huge what just happened. Okay. Let's see if Dorothy can describe it. Okay, so we know, we were talking about like cycles of comfort in the body, right? And how if you're hungry, it feels really good to eat. And if you're really full, it feels really good to rest and don't eat. And things like if you're really tired, it feels good to rest and so forth. Okay, so these cycles in creation are cycles within cycles within cycles within cycles. So they're multiples of cycles throughout the whole universe. And there are times when the beginnings and endings of cycles align, like small cycles align with bigger cycles. And there are times when smaller cycles and bigger cycles don't align, okay? So when we have times when cycles align, we can think of these times as, we tend, as humans especially, to think of these moments as really auspicious. Like the beginning and end of the Mayan calendar, for example. And when you get a whole bunch of cycles aligning together, like lining up like that, it's a lot like getting a whole bunch of octaves playing at the same, for those of you who are musicians out there, it's like getting a bunch of octaves playing at the same time. Bum, bum, you know, I don't have a very big range. I'm obviously not a singer. But anyway, when that happens, you get a really stable structure of energy frequencies working together harmoniously to support the intention, to support desire. And because these times when the cycles align is like really, really orderly, these are times when a lot of good can come forward. Great time to start new things, for example. You start a new project when everything, the big cycles and the little cycles are all aligning, and you get all that support. You get the support of the energy of the little cycles, and you get the support of the energy of the bigger cycles. Okay, so we have this rhythm thing happening. Now, there are also those in-between times when the cycles don't align. And these times can seem a little more chaotic. Oh, like the time that we're in right now, for example, if we're looking out at our world, and if we're looking from whatever angle we're looking from, if you're looking from the angle of politics or education or economics or astronomy or astrology, or, you know, you're just looking inside yourself and you're saying, wow, you know, I think there have been times when things have been a little more orderly than they are right now. So these more chaotic times are more coherently supportive of other kinds of life form in creation. There are forms that thrive on the discordant frequencies that come, the discord that's created when the frequencies don't align with each other. And staying with this music analogy, we know that the beauty of that moment when the chords come home and you get that luscious, beautiful, resonant resolution at the end of a piece of music is only beautiful because that really dissonant chord was there right before it. If it's just consonant and consonant and consonant and consonant, it's nice, but it's not nearly as yummy. It's not nearly as interesting or enriching. Like, it doesn't expand the brain in the same way as a piece of music that dares to become dissonant and then resolve. And there's also music. My nephew is on YouTube playing this unbelievably dissonant piece. I love him. He knows that I'm proud of him that he's on there doing that. Unbelievably dissonant piece of music. It's a very modern piece of music. And it's just like screeching guitars for like a really long period of time. That also is like a glorification or a tribute, an honoring of those moments in the creative process, in the life experience process, where the alignment isn't lining up nicely, but it's fighting. It's not that the fighting ones are bad and the resonant ones are good. It's that when they are all doing what they're supposed to do in the way that they are supposed to do it, then we get evolution. We experience alignment. We experience infinity at every point. The mother of the universe, is laughing. So this big thing that happened just a few minutes ago in the webinar, this big healing, this big transformation, what it did was it put all these varieties of alignments or misalignments, if we want to call them misalignments, but incoherent alignments, it put them all in perspective. So that no matter how beautiful, or no matter how jarring, or no matter how perfect, or no matter how impossible any particular life experience is, it can be understood in terms of its place in creation, in the wholeness of creation, and its importance for infinity to be, infinity to be. Okay, I'm just looking at that. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this big download everybody's getting right now into the God presence, into the divine levels of self, and into even the denser levels of the self, a big download associated with this holistic understanding of the variety of experience and the nature of the value of both resonant experiences and dissonant experiences. Because ultimately, they are tools. Both the resonant and the dissonant are tools. And what I'm seeing happening is the conscious mind is asking the body, what do you need? How may I serve you? How may I use these tools to, because we're befriending the body, remember? That's what this webinar is about. How can I use these tools to produce a life flow for you that results in your immortality, that results in exceptionally fine digestion, that results in balanced cycles of rest and activity, sleeping at night, balanced circadian rhythms, maximally healthy condition of all the different body systems, endocrine, circulatory, nervous system, skeletal system, etc. How can we use these tools to produce an all-time stable, constant experience for the physiology of that comfort that surpasses description? That comfort that we start out with at the beginning of this webinar as part of the description of the foundation for ideal health. I'm looking. I'm putting that, I'm offering that like a flower back at the feet of divine being. Okay, so what's coming forward is body has lots of rhythms. And body's rhythms are, body has both big rhythms and small rhythms. And sometimes body's rhythms are all aligned up so that we're at that resonant point. And sometimes body's rhythms are in the dissonant points. These rhythms are founded upon where you are in your rhythmic cycle. Everybody's bodies are going to be a little different. Like I might be at one of my resonant points where somebody else in the audience might be at a dissonant point. And that's because all the rhythms begin at birth. And I'm asking, do they begin? Well, that's a good question. Do they begin at birth or do they begin at conception? No, not at the beginning of conception. Are you sure? Are you sure? Some of the rhythms begin at conception. Some of the rhythms. Yeah, I've never asked this question before, so I'm getting back a very interesting answer. So the answer that's coming back is there's a certain amount of autonomy. There's both autonomy and lack of autonomy in this. Certain aspects of the rhythms are predetermined when they begin, and some of them are not predetermined. Some of them you have a choice over. Well, that's very interesting. And some of them are established prior to taking the physical body at all. Because some of the rhythms that we're looking at are part of the eternal story of the soul that goes through many physiologies. So it's not just about the physical rhythms of the body. It's also about the interface between the physical rhythms of the body. In fact, it's more importantly about the interface between the physical rhythms of the physical body, and which do begin, by the way, at conception. I'm getting a yes on that. And this whole myriad of rhythms which are associated with being, which are associated with consciousness, personality, likes and dislikes, skills and abilities. You know, if you were a potter 3,000 years ago or something, you know, in this lifetime, certain aspects of interface between personality and physicality that are associated with the earth element will be based on that origin back then of, oh, that's when I came to understand the laws of earth. Oh, I was, you know, in different lifetimes, we learn things about laws of nature. So I know that this level of the physiology, the spirit level of the physiology, is the level where the being really, truly gets the laws of nature. It really understands how the laws of nature work and function. So it's from that level that we need to, I would say, we're working down into now subtler aspects of the relationship between physical, mental, emotional, personality, etc. But we've also come to our hour. So what that means is that this, speaking of the beginnings and endings of cycles, that this little seed that has to do with working with the spirit body and how the subtler aspects of consciousness interface with the laws of nature is a really interesting key point, which I think deserves to be honored and explored in a much more elaborated form in tomorrow's webinar. So, because it looks like it's pretty big. Therefore, we will do that. And I just want to say thank you to everybody for being with me tonight, and that you absolutely will get a recording of tomorrow's webinar, whether you're with me live or not. It doesn't matter. You get it. And may you receive all blessings from everything that we've done tonight and everything that we will do in the future. Thank you. I'm so grateful to have everybody. I am now going to end the meeting, and may we continue in our cycles as we go along. I guess we're leaving it at a little lack of conclusion there, but that's probably all for the best. For those of you who came in a little late, I did bring out some points right at the beginning about some business stuff that's interesting. So you might, even though you've seen this webinar, if you missed a few minutes at the beginning, don't forget to go back and just watch the first couple of minutes, because I laid out some information there which you will find interesting and useful and a blessing. So thank you everyone for joining me tonight. I am really excited to see where we go with this in the next session. And it's been amazing, amazing. We did huge, big waves tonight. So thank you all. See you all soon.